Hello everybody, Corey here. I believe this is my last video to catch up from Friday, April 12th. We're going to go over the trades and holdings for all these single stock ETFs, and it is Friday, so this video will be long. And what we will do here, we're going to swap back and forth over between the trades and holdings. So we'll do AIYY trades, then we'll go to AIYY holdings. So feel free to, if you want to listen to the whole thing, maybe do it 2 times in YouTube so it'll go faster. And then also you can fast forward to the specific ETF that you want to view if you don't want to watch all of this. Just a reminder, I am not a financial advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only and not financial advice. All right, so just to get started here, we're going to go at AIYY. This one right here has been a total heartbreak for me. And I hope the microwave in the background with my daughter cooking her macaroni and cheese doesn't bother y'all, but we're going to keep moving on, and I'll just try to speak a little bit louder to speak over the microwave. But anyway, back to my heartbreak with AIYY. They have had one thing I wanted to do, because I had done a little project, but I wanted to go back and see when these were, this specific synthetic was actually done. I guess I should have done that before. We have lots of trades going on here. Sorry about this. So let's look at just the synthetics. And it was somewhere around the end of February. So we're looking for large amounts. So just see 6,000 there. And then we're up to 11,000. So it was the 6,000 mark. Wow, so they did it exactly on the day. So February 29th. This is where, yeah, so this actually hurt them as well. Or did it? Hold on. So now that we've narrowed this down, and I know if you don't care about AIYY, but I personally do, and I know there are some others out there, and I've seen people ask questions specifically about this on Reddit. We had a question on this during the Rod Retire on Dividends live video on Friday. So if we look here, they closed out of the $30 strike price that they had. That had an option expiration date of March 15th. So they actually closed this one out a couple of weeks early. So if we looked at my little project that I did on the daily holdings, and I was looking at the expiration, since the last expiration and future things that had happened, I should have went back and actually looked to see when they did this. So now I might do that just to see, so I can see overall how it decreased. But anyway, I'm sorry. I'm going to end up making this video longer. What is that? So they received $3.5 million at that time, but they closed out, as you can see here, of the $30 strike price, and they increased the synthetic to $35. Okay, so that was the 29th and 35. That's when the $35 started. I should just do it. I feel like I should just do a video just on AIYY. So if we look at AI here, and let's look at the daily. See if we look right here. What date is that? So February 29th. So you can see right here, February 29th. That was earnings, and you can see that it jumped up, but it only went up for a few days and then it crashed right back down. So I'm not sure why they decided to close out the synthetic position with the $30 strike price 2 weeks early and on the earnings date. But by doing this and the stock not continuing to go up, this stock has been killed pretty much. So sorry, I know this is a little bit more in depth than normal. So what ended up happening here? You see the first two lines, they close the synthetic position. That's going to expire next week. So then again, it's one of those things. They closed it out on the reddest day in a long time for the stock market. I don't even know. I didn't look at that overall, but I know by doing the other videos, the S&P was down about 1.45%. And we all know how red it was. So red that I even bought stock and ETFs on Friday. But yeah, they chose to close that out that day while the stock price was 36% underneath, or at least at the close, it was 36% below that strike price. And you can see it cost $14.2 million to do so. 14.2. And I remember there was days there that it was going to be like, it was going to be 10 million. And even then I was, it seemed crazy. And then it went to 12.5 and then 12.7. And in the end it paid 14 million. And this is a small ETF. So that is a significant amount, unlike doing something like that for Coney. But then if we look, the new synthetic that they put on, it's only out a few weeks. It's not even, but they did do it at a strike price of $22. So I'm not sure why they would have picked that price. Somewhere here I have the earnings sheets, and I did a video over this, and I'll update this weekend, and I can update these every week because last time I did the earnings sheet and posted it in Discord for everybody, a lot of these dates changed and stuff, and I'm also going to add pre and post market. But if I review this every week, then we should have good data here. So anyway, we're looking specifically for AI. So where is that? So May 31st. So they at least did the next one to end before the next earnings date, but then they'll still have a few more weeks. So I'm not sure the reasoning behind, just pushing it a few weeks just to then have earnings a few weeks after that. I just really hope they don't put us in the same position. However, I think I said this in the daily video. Now that we've had the bloodsucker, closed out here, that has basically killed this fund, so much so that it's down to the stock price of OARC. And we all know how bad that is, right? But now is the time, I guess, I personally would be okay buying in based on that and the new strike price. But again, that's my own personal opinion and not financial advice. Just glad that, yeah, it sucks that they just closed this out and the price that they closed it out, but the good thing it's done. So now I think we're better off purchasing into this. And if I'd have known they were going to do this Friday, I would have bought some more on Friday. But anyway, we will move on there. I know I've spent 10 minutes, probably 25% of this entire video is probably going to be on AIYY. But that's what happens when you're invested in these things, and in specific ETFs. So I do apologize. If you didn't want to hear about AIYY, I really hope you fast forwarded. But anyway, so we're going to continue on here. So AIYY closed at $12.21 on Friday, and you can see that was another decrease of 54 cents. And AI closed at $22.43, which was over $1.24 on Friday. And then, of course, now you can see our new positions. We have our new synthetics and our new short call. They did open one short call the day before, so we have this split at two different strike prices. So you can see here now we have the short calls that will expire next week at 24 and 24.50 strike prices. Those are split somewhat evenly there, and we're below those strike prices 7 and 8%. So we'll finally move on to AMDY. They closed out their short positions. And they did roll all of those to next week. And they have one strike price now. versus 3. Let's see. We closed at 163.28. They had 177.50, 172.50, and 170, but now they rolled them all into one strike price at 172.50, and we're currently 5% underneath that strike price. You can see the prices there that they closed out of those if you would like. And then we will move on to the holdings. So AMDY closed at 1804, which was down 64% on Friday, and AMD closed down 163.28. You can see the new short call right there with those 6,798 contracts. And the that I'm talking about is, I mean, we're a month away still, but look at that synthetic for AMD. If they had to close out of that on Friday, that would be $24 million. And you can see the total net assets right now is only at 111,000. So that is a significant amount for this fund. But anyway, we have that new short call that expires next week at 172.50, and again, we are underneath that by 5%. So let's move on to AMZ. AMZ closed out their short calls on Friday, and it looks like they rolled, all of them to the existing short call they already had there. And here's the prices if you would like to see those. And let's just go ahead and review the holdings here for AMZ. They closed at 23.38, so they were down a little bit there, along with Amazon at 186.13. You can see there where they added to that short call. And the strike the short call expires next Friday with that strike price of 190, and we're currently 2% under that, a little under $4. If we move on to Apple. Apple here. So they rolled their synthetic positions with the same option date or expiration date to a lower strike price of 170 from 175 for the 3,255 contracts. So you can see that over here on the right. I'm guessing due to concentration rule, by doing that, they ended up having to pay out $1.6 million. And then they had so this shows that they closed out the 3 short call positions, 170, 172, and 175. But let's see. Maybe I have some formulas missing. Yep, I have a formula missing. Let's just say there is no short call there. So somehow, unless I had saved the trades and then they noticed the issue and updated them. So let me do something real quick here. I pause this and then do it on my computer, but I'm not sitting at my computer this second. So we're looking at 148. Somehow, I can see right here the formulas are missing for a few lines. So let's fix that. Which then also means I need to fix the trades because I am going to have an additional line here. So I'm going to make this red just as well. Let's make it a different color because red means bad. This just means I need to add another, I need to add this to the summary of all of our trades for future reference when we go into doing things. But anyway, I apologize for that. I didn't do a great scrub this morning, but I could tell that something was missing here. So they rolled all of those to a short call for next week at a strike price of 180. We're currently only 2% below that. And then you can see, yes, so all of them were done that way. Okay. Again, apologize. Let's go to the holdings for Apple. They closed at 1705. they only went up 5 cents, while Apple went up $1.51. So let's look here real quick. So Apple closed at 176.55 on Friday. So you can look here at their short calls on Friday, and probably before, I can't remember unless I went back to the other tabs for the other days, they were over the strike price. So they were already maxed out for the day, right? Or for the week. So they were over the strike price. So that's why Apple could not go up anymore there. So they ended up closing at 17.05. So you see the new synthetic positions there. And then I can go back and add it, but after this video, this doesn't matter. But obviously we had the new short call added here, as you can see, with a that will expire next week with a strike price of 180, and we're currently underneath that 2%, which is only what, $3.45. So we're really close there. And then if we want to move on to Coney here, synthetic position was going to expire next week, so they decided to go ahead and close out of this one as well. I think this was the only other one, the AI and this one, AIYY and this one, but I could be wrong. But so I highlighted this one because this one's different. Usually when people close out of these funds, they do separate lines for them, right? In this case, they didn't do that, but you can see there's a difference. So there's synthetics that they closed out, 17,650. Well, they only rolled 700 of them. So 650 they did not keep. And then you can see the same in the bottom too with the short calls. It's 650. Normally, the way we would see this is we would see them closing out 650 to synthetic lines for 650, and then one trade or one short call for 650. Then we would see the rolled. I'm not sure why this one was different, but just wanted to point that out. So 650 contracts were closed out altogether, and then 17,000 were rolled. So you can see that. And then, so those are the four lines. We went from a 250 strike price for the synthetic to a 260 strike price. And we're actually underneath that synthetic strike price by 5%. So we're 245. So this tells me that they're expecting for Coinbase to go up, which, we are going into the Bitcoin halving, right? In the next, supposedly in the next week, maybe 2 weeks. It just depends, how it works out. It's not a specific set date, for those of you that don't follow Bitcoin. But anyway, they had this at 260. And then you can see the data over here that goes with that. And then if we look at the short calls, the short call that expired on Friday had a strike price of 257.50, and we were underneath that strike price by 5%. But whenever they closed it, I don't know if it's early on in the day or what, but they ended up paying 44 cents a share to close those out still, costing $722,000. But then the new strike price is 270. So this is saying, based on those two new ones, they're wanting the price, expecting the price next week to be between 260 and 270. But then they brought in over 6.3 million for that new short call. All right, so let's look at the holdings for Coney here. They closed at 26.03, so they were down 93 cents on Friday. Coin closed at 245.75, so that was down not $20 but close. I'm not going to do that math in my head. And you can see here where they rolled the 17,000 shares, and then the new short call that they have there. So we have 3 short calls total for next week. Let's just make sure. Yeah. So we have a 262.50 strike price, a 270 strike price, a 277.50 strike price. So we're currently underneath those 6 to 11%. And then, as you can see, we've already talked about, we're also underneath that synthetic currently, that new synthetic as well. All right, we're going to move over to Dizzo. Dizzo here, they closed out the 3 short calls that they had, 121, 120, and 119. We were underneath all those strike prices on Friday, so you can see they closed those out for 1 or 2 cents a piece. And then our new short call strike prices are 117 and 118 that expire next week. We're currently 3% below that. If we look over here to the holdings, you can see Dizzo closed at 2045. So, oh, I'm sorry, kitty. Kick the cat. So we did go down significantly there on, well, not really significantly, maybe for Dizzo, but 60 cents. And then Disney dropped over $3 there. We can see here the new short calls and that we already went over. The 17-18 strike prices, we're under those by 3%. We're also under the synthetic by 5% currently. Let's move over to FBY. Looks like they closed out of the short calls for Friday. They had strike prices of $5.35 and $5.25. They were 2 and 4% below those. They ended up paying 2 and 5 cents a piece to close those out. And the new short call that expires next Friday has a strike price of $5.30. And they did roll all of those to that price. So if we go back over to the holdings and we look at FBY, they closed at 22.03, down 30 cents on Friday, and Meta closed at 511.90, so they were down somewhere around $11 or $12 there. You can see the trades that we already went over, and then you see here that new short call that we're currently 33% below. And then we go back to GUI. GUI closed out the short call. They rolled that to next week. It had a strike price of $155, and now it's at $160. You can see they did all of the shares, all the contracts there. But looking at that, it had a strike price of $155, but Alphabet closed at $157.73. So they actually ended up having to, they were over the strike price, or the stock was over the strike price, so it ended up costing extra money to close this one out. So if we go over to GUI and look, it closed at $17.52, so it was only down 3 cents. Google itself, though, or Alphabet itself, was down, I don't know, somewhere around $1.70 or so cents there. You can see here that the short call they already had, they're currently above that one by 23 cents. It only has 70 contracts, though, with our new strike there being at 160, and we're underneath that by 1%. So only about $2.27 below that. Go to JPMO. Again, JPMO had earnings on Friday, and it was really bad. But we see here, I think that might be the only one that didn't have trades on it. Which is actually bad for the synthetic there. So if we look at this, it dropped. JPMO dropped $1.09 to $19.91. JPM itself dropped, somewhere around $13. I'm not doing that math in my head, but yeah, they dropped quite a bit there. If you look here, we have a short call for next week. We're currently under that by 9%. However, our synthetic, we're also underneath that because they have the same strike prices, but it's by 9%. Again, doesn't expire for a few weeks. So we'll see how that goes, or month. So we move on to Murni. They closed out their short call that expired on Friday. They rolled it to next week with the new strike price from 107 to 109 for all of their contracts. 107, so they were actually under it. You can see they paid 11 cents a share to close those out. So if we look at the holdings here, Murni closed at $20.33, so it was down 4 cents. However, Moderna itself was down almost $2. You see the 2 short calls here, but the strike prices of 108 and 109 for next week. We're currently 3 and 4% below these strike prices. All right, so we're going to go on to MSFO. MSFO here, we have lots of transactions. So they closed out three of the short calls they had that expired on Friday, 430, 432.50, and 435. We were underneath all of those, so they ended up only paying 2 or 3 cents to close those out. The new ones here, well, they added to one of the short calls they already had, the 430 strike price. They added 900 contracts to that one, and then they did a new strike price with 435 at 285 contracts there. So if we go look at the holdings themselves, MSFO was down to 22.10, dropping roughly 23 cents there, while Microsoft was down about $6.03 to 421.90. The two short calls there, you can see we're currently under those by 2 and 3%, with the strike prices 430 and 435. We're going to move on to Misty, MSTY. So they closed out all of the short calls and put it all the different strike prices and did one strike price for next week. So that's scary based on, what we've watched with this one. However, I've specifically watched it for my own personal trades in the past week. Misty really has ranged from about 1350 to about 1575. It just keeps going back and forth between that range, so maybe that's why they did one strike price here. But also, the Bitcoin halving is coming up in a week or two, so I don't know how this is going to play out for, MicroStrategy here, or Misty. So you can see 1760, all 545 of them. You can see what they closed. Let's see. So it closed at 1479 on Friday, but they must have called it when it was in the 1500s, because they paid 387 to close out that 1530 strike price. But I know at one point at least it was up to around 1545 that day. So I don't know. I guess maybe they closed this when it was above it. So it ended up costing about $29,000. But anyway, let's move over to the holdings. You can see that MicroStrategy ended up dropping, what is that, $1.46 on Friday to $35.54, and MicroStrategy closed down roughly $80 there as well at $14.79.58. So I didn't realize that Misty's synthetics close on the 19th either, but they closed out the other ones for the 19th. Oh, because this one's, they're hoping probably it's going to come up some because it's under 13% there. Yeah. So maybe they're going to hope it's going to come up next week, which is probably what I would have done with AIYY, but I guess that's what they've been doing for a long time, hoping for it to come up, and it never did. And then they chose the reddest day to close it. But anyway, you can see that synthetic. So the short calls, right, for next week expire 1635 and 1670, and we're underneath those by 10 and 11%. However, we have these synthetic positions that also expire next week that have the strike price of 1700, and we are beneath that by 13%. So you can see if we had to close out that synthetic position today or Friday, it would have cost $12.3 million to do so. So hoping it comes up this next week, or at some point it will come up so they can close those out. Let's go on to Nephi. We have no trades. Our second one with no trades. So let's move on here. Nephi closed at $18.20, down 24 cents. Netflix closed at $622.83, down roughly $6. They have two short calls there that will expire next week, $680, $685, and we're currently below those by 8 and 9%. We'll move on to NVIDIA. NVIDIA closed out of the short calls that they had that expired on Friday with the strike prices of $870, $895, and $910. And they rolled, all of them to next week to expire next Friday with one strike price at $920 for all 4,750 contracts. You can see what they closed them out for here. That one they paid $16.25 to close out. It was a strike price of $8.70. They ended up closing at $8.81. So I guess that's why it cost them more there to close that one out on Friday. If we look at the trades here, it closed at 26.63. So that is down from the day before. And NVIDIA also, it was down as well, 881.86. So we have that short call right there with 920, and we're currently underneath that by 4%. Well, let's go on to OARC. OARC closed out their short call positions, 1 or 2 cents a piece because they were down so much. They had strike prices of 48.50, 49, 49.50, and then they rolled all that to one strike price of 48.50 for next week. So you can see that here, OARC was down roughly 36 cents to 12.15. ARC got down to 46.51. It's been a while since I've seen it down there. But if we see here, we have two short calls that will expire next week, 48.50 and the 49. We're currently under those 4 and 5%. Let's move on to PayPay. It closed out its short call at 67, rolled that to next week for 67.50. For all of the contracts, you can see they paid 3 cents to close those out. All right, so we're going to move on to the holdings here for PayPay. It closed at $18.90, down 9 cents. PayPal closed at $64.59, so it was down roughly $1.21 there. You see the new short call with a strike price of $67.50. We're currently below that by 4%. Let's go over and look at Squee. They closed out the short call that they had with a strike price of $80. They did roll that to next week also to $80. They paid 4 cents to close those out. The stock ended up, closing at $76.99, which we'll see over here. Squee closed at $23.12, so it was down. And then same thing with Block, $76.99 there. And you can see the $80 short call there, where we're under that by 4%. Let's move on to Tesla. I'm always happy to see Tesla because I know I'm almost done. And these Friday videos are extremely long. I don't like that this one wasn't sorted properly, however, but you can see that all the short calls for Tesla were rolled to this next week. You can see they closed out all the ones that expired on Friday. And let's look. So we paid 1 cent to close half of them out, and then 21 cents to pay the other half, which was the 172.50 strike, and Tesla did end up closing at 171.05, which is actually good because Tesla was up for days. It just kept going up and up and up, and I think it even got up to 178 until the red Friday that we had, so that actually worked out for us. But then they rolled these to next week, all to one strike price, even though they're on 3 different lines. You can just see that they rolled them they're at different prices. But they wrote them all to a 177.50 strike price, in which we were under that by 4% when they did that. And you can see the reason over here. They paid a different price per share to roll those. So 171, or didn't pay. They received premium at different prices. 171, 178, and 199. But they did all go to the same strike price. So if we look at Tesla here, it closed at $15.33, so it was down 15 cents. Sorry about that. I just had to scream at my cat. I think I had just read the Tesla being down a few cents. Tesla. And then Tesla is down 171.05, so we can see that was down a few dollars there on Friday. So you see our short call, we only have one. All 41,000 contracts are at the 177.50 strike price, which is crazy because I know we were at that at some point this week. So we're only 4% below that at this point, or on Friday. And Zomo, our last one. They closed out the short call that they had that expired on Friday with a strike price of 124. They rolled that to next week with a strike price of 126. All right, so let's look over here at the holdings. Zomo 1842, so it was down 21 cents. And then Exxon 120.37, it was down somewhere around $1.40. We have two short calls that expire next week, 123 and 126, and we're currently under those by 2 and 4%. If we go down, YMAG ended up closing down at $20.68, and YMAX was also down at $21.28, and YMAX still does not have Misty in it yet either, just to let you know. So anyway, this was an extremely long video, and I know I'm sorry for the AIYY up front. However, I know for those that actually own AIYY, to give you that better understanding in that, I hope you appreciate that part of it. But anyway, yep, I think that's my last video to close up Friday. I appreciate it if you've made it this far. Thank you, everyone, and y'all have a great weekend. Bye.